Welcome to Divine Intimacy Radio, a co-production of EWTN Radio and spiritualdirection.com, where we provide you with a spiritual haven of rest and explore the riches of the wisdom of the saints and the path to union with God.
This is Dan and Stephanie Burke. Welcome to Divine Intimacy Radio, your radio haven of rest,
your hermitage of the heart,
your monastery of the mind, where we lift our hearts and minds to heaven to draw on the wisdom, beauty, tradition of the church to help us to navigate the tumult of this crazy life we live.
Yes, and I love our topic today.
Yeah, what is our topic today?
Tradition, the beauty of tradition.
The beauty of tradition.
And how it draws our hearts and minds to
God.
God.
Now, are you one of those mad trad people?
No.
You're not.
No, I would.
She says with this huge smile.
No.
Right?
What did you? I'm a Trentecostal.
Trentecostal or a tradismatic?
Tradismatic.
Don't tell.
Don't tell our guests.
No, our guest is probably fine with that sort of stuff. Yeah. My friend Kennedy Hall might recoil at those combinations. But so our guest today is Tony Schreiner. Stephanie, why don't you introduce him?
Okay. There are 1.3 billion Catholics.
Yeah.
But for most of them, their faith is just a flicker.
Yeah.
Tradition is the fireplace. It preserves the fire of every saint, every church teaching, and the Mass of the ages. We create movies and media to immerse Catholics in that tradition so their faith can become a roaring fire. And so our guest today is Tony Schreiner, and his bio has nothing to do directly with him, but with the work that he does, which I love because his work points to God.
Right.
Right.
So can we just call him Tony Firestarter Schreiner?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, Tony, welcome to Divine Intimacy Radio.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, Tony, I'm just curious, where did this passion to connect us to the ancient paths? And I'm just now reminded of one of my favorite passages, which is in the book of Jeremiah. It says, look to the ancient paths, for the way that you should go, and then and choose those ancient paths. I'm sort of butchering the passage, and there you will find rest, for your souls. When did this ancient path light up for you?
Wow. I think the ancient past, tradition lit up for me about the time that my wife Allison and we now have 9 children, and I'm just going to say it even though I didn't ask for her permission. We're pregnant with number 10.
Oh, congratulations. Awesome.
And
great way to evangelize, by the way.
Yes.
Have more kids, right?
More kids, exactly. So pray for Allison, please. And she's doing great. I think tradition really hit us when we had started reading Divine Intimacy. We started reading it. It was given to us as a gift.
Huh.
And I started reading it, not knowing what in the world I was doing. I was just reading it. And it's now been, I think, 5 or 6 years that we've been reading it every year, every day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was about the second year that we were reading it that it dawned on us, like, oh, wait a second. St. Teresa of Jesus is the same person as St. Teresa of Avila. And we were just like, I was thinking these are 2 different people. And anyway, so this, because how Father Gabriel writes about her in Divine Intimacy. So I think tradition hit us about that second year of reading Divine Intimacy every day that we realized there's so much beyond what we thought we knew about our faith. There's so much about tradition, this capital T, right? Tradition. And it really hit us hard. And that was probably about 4 years ago. So it really hit us hard because we're still learning a lot with our faith. We didn't get everything right from the beginning, but thanks be to God, once we got the ship pointed in the right direction, and the Carmelites have really helped us. Father Gabriel, St. Teresa, St. Catherine of Siena, St. Teresa Sue. I mean, there's just so many. St. John of the Cross, such a huge help for us. So I'm thankful for that time because the light really came on at that point as far as tradition goes for us. Yep.
That's beautiful. So a lot of people may not know, but our show is named Divine Intimacy Radio is named after that very text, and the text was a compilation of daily reflections that was assembled by Father Gabriel of St. Mary Magdalene before the Second Vatican Council. It is a classic, well known in Carmelite circles. I think Father Gabriel is a saint. At least his writings, to me, really draw, from the same well, of course, as the saints, because he constantly is quoting Teresa of Avila or Teresa of Jesus, John of the Cross. But the original premise of the show was to draw people into that divine intimacy, and the Avila Institute for Spiritual Formation, which was where we do our priestly formation around the world, through which we do lay formation, all of that, was founded on the desire to recreate the Teresianum in Rome, which Father Gabriel of St. Mary Magdalene actually was the rector of, but for the whole world. And it didn't matter where you came from or how much money you had, as long as you had an internet connection. We wanted to reach you with the power of mystical tradition in the church. And so it's fascinating that your whole love of tradition emerged first out of mystical tradition. There's one more thing I want to say about that. I don't know if you noticed the last time you were in Rome, but a lot of people don't notice this, but it's really significant. When you enter St. Peter's Basilica, do you know what statues, the first ones you see on the right and the left and right down the center aisle, are? Does it ring a bell? But I'll tell you, there's no penalty, by the way, or buzzer noise that we're going to do. It's Saint Teresa of Avila is on the right, on your right, and Saint Peter of Alcantara is on your left. And so Saint Peter of Alcantara, many people don't know, had a great influence on Teresa, but he was a Franciscan. But both of them were mystics. And I really believe, I probably John Paul II, I know statues are moved around in the Vatican. They're not all permanently placed where they are necessarily. I would bet we'd find out that John Paul II put them there to send a signal that says, if you want to understand this whole thing, this is the lens you have to look through. And that is the mystical tradition of the church, which I would summarize as the pathway of love, how it is that we come to have our hearts inflamed, which we opened with, which is your mission, how to have our hearts inflamed with love for the reality of what this whole place signifies. So anyway, I didn't expect you to say that's where your first touch with tradition came from.
Yeah, that's true. That's right.
Beautiful. So Stephanie and I are fans of your series, Mass of the Ages. Really love it. I think one aspect of that series, particularly the way that you opened it up, is that it opens with something I think is harder to do and it requires more discipline in terms of when we begin to attempt to convince people, hey, look at the ancient past, look at the beauty of the church and its ancient rites and perspective, is you err on the side of presenting the beauty instead of, you don't come out of the gate going, we don't like the Novus Ordo, we're against all these things. You're not angry in any way. The thing, and a lot of times traditionalists, if you will, are characterized as being really angry people. I don't know, Steph, was that your same impression?
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very beautiful. The series is incredible. It's incredibly produced, beautifully produced. What struck me about it, to your point, Dan, was that through the story of this particular family that lost their father and their husband, is the effect of the beauty.
Yeah.
So it's the peace and the joy in very, very difficult circumstances that was an outgrowth of their attendance at this Mass. And it was just extraordinarily beautiful.
And the reason for their, the peace and the joy, if I could put one word around it, there's a handful of phrases that I could use. Transcendence is one, Tony.
Right.
God's theocentric, God-centered. But tell me about your mission, and is that approach to leading people to the deep, beautiful, powerful, life-changing well of tradition central to your approach? I mean, does it characterize all that you're trying to do, and why is that?
Okay, yeah. So let's talk about our mission,
Yeah.
because it can be construed as that we only want to talk about the old mass, right?
Yeah.
Let's just talk about the liturgy. That's not the case. I will say this: Cameron O'Hearn, the founder,
Yeah.
our chief creative officer. He started out, and it was just going to be one film, right? It's just going to be one film. That ended up being 3, the trilogy that we call it, and this next shift, as I was on the board of directors for a while, and then Cameron asked me to be the CEO, and not knowing how to run a media company, I came from the world of software
Yeah.
and started my own software company and ran that for about a decade. I just prayed. I was like, Lord, you're going to have to tell me what you want to do, because I have no idea, but I know this is where you want me to be. And he was very clear. Thanks be to God for the Teresian method of prayer, of mental prayer, because it really has helped me get locked in every morning with God and listen to him. And not every, as we all know, not every day's a perfect day of listening, but it was very clear. He said, cast the net wide, cast the net wide. So one of the big changes that I made, that God has made to Mass of the Ages through me, is that everything that we do is focused around taking all Catholics and increasing their flame of faith. So let's break that down. Right now, for every 100 new Catholics that join the church, 800 leave. And that's absolutely brutal. For every 100 Catholics that join the church, right? Because Catholics join the church all the time. For every 100 that join, 800 leave. And this kind of goes back to what Pope Benedict XVI said, is that we're going to have a smaller, more condensed, stronger church. It's going to shrink. And we're seeing that. Yeah.
Tony, we're headed into a break right now, but I want to start back where you've ended there and just repeat this to everyone. So we rejoice over the 100s that are coming in, but Tony said something worth repeating for the third time. Every 100 new, 800 leave. And so when we get back from the break, what we want to do is tap into the mission that they're chasing after, and that we support, and why Divine Intimacy Radio exists, is to light the fire of faith in the lives of the people of God. We want to talk about how they're pursuing a strategy that will help anyone, and it doesn't matter where you are, what kind of Mass you attend. The strategy to help anyone to go deeper in their faith, and that is, of course, always rooted in tradition. So we'll be right back.
So if you're just joining us, once again, I'm here with Father Timothy Gallagher and Dan Burke, and we're talking about spiritual warfare. The Avila Foundation is launching a brand new video series on spiritual warfare and discernment of spirits based on Dan's book by the same name.
It costs like $1,000, doesn't it?
It's totally free.
Okay.
Now, it did cost us something to make. If you want to donate toward it, that is fantastic, but it's totally free because this is so important. Free. Nobody should be without this wisdom, and it's part of Dan's heart that there's nobody in the church that shouldn't have access to the wisdom that the saints have given us. spiritualdirection.com/warfare. This is where you're going to find the brand new video series that Dan has recorded on spiritual warfare and discernment of spirits. spiritualdirection.com/warfare.
This is Dan and Stephanie Burke. Welcome back to Divine Intimacy Radio. We're with Tony Schreiner, talking about Mass of the Ages and about the beauty of our tradition. Before the break, Tony, you said something that I hope all Catholics hear. For every 100 new Catholics who join the church, 800 leave. I mean, I can give other statistics, by the way. In terms of vocations, the average age of priests right now is, I think, around 67. We do priestly formation for we have relationship with over 100 dioceses all around the United States and the world, which includes Australia, Ireland, Canada, and we have relationships with over 100, and only 48 have vocations. 48
Mm.
100, because all of them would be sending us men. Now we've done formation for 600 men up to this year, teaching them primarily the beautiful mystical traditions regarding personal prayer, mental prayer, what it means to know God and to follow Him, what it means to have a beautiful perspective on liturgy of the hours, and all of these aspects that men need before they head into seminary. So there isn't just a crisis of the shrinking of the church. There's also a crisis in vocations that we're trying to address at the Avila Institute. But Tony, tell us what you're doing to light this fire in the church to help mitigate this kind of bleeding, this dramatic bleeding of folks who are leaving.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan. So we are a Catholic media company, right?
Mhm.
We make media, we make film and other forms of media. Our mission is to bring Catholic tradition to the world,
Mhm.
period. Because tradition is the solution, right?
Mhm.
So we've got a lot of problems. We can name a lot of problems. Modernism is a problem.
Right.
The fact that we're bleeding chips as a church, right? We're bleeding souls,
Mhm.
right? So for every, and I really feel like I should have been one of those 700, or pardon me, 800 that leave, right? For every 100 that join, 800 leave. I was baptized at 6 months old. 6 months later, my parents got a divorce. I never stepped foot in a church again
Until
until 17 years old.
wow. Mhm.
Wow.
17 years old. At the age of 18, I did not know what the resurrection of Jesus Christ meant. I had no idea. I
Mhm.
was clueless because I wasn't catechized or even talked about anything about the Trinity or even our Lord. So Mass of the Ages exists to bring Catholic tradition to the world because tradition is the solution.
Mhm.
When we see those of us who are baptized Catholics, and I feel like even those who aren't, but let's just talk about the baptized Catholics. If we have that grace, we have even if it's just a flicker of a flame, then tradition will help us see this is in our DNA. I can actually get excited about the fact that these feasts and festivals exist all over the world. All these saints who were born with original sin struggled just like me and
Mhm.
suffered, right? And obviously we know our Lord suffered, but we can connect with that. So our media is set to be, yes, the three things that we hear from everybody: true, good, and beautiful. But
Yeah.
people are missing one of the four properties of God, and that's unitive. So we make sure that all of our media has those four properties of God: truth, beauty, unity, and goodness.
Hmm.
So we know that as a Catholic media company, we can bring tradition to the world, and that will grow this flame of faith that people have, even if they've only been baptized and never stepped foot in a church again. Because the other thing that's crazy, guys, is out of the 8.2 billion people in this world, 5 billion people consume media on a daily basis.
Mhm.
5 billion people.
Hmm.
So this is where God wants to work. He wants to work through media. There is going to be, and I feel it's happening right now, a renaissance in Catholic art and its visual media.
That's fascinating. I think it's Philippians 4:8 keeps coming to mind here. Whatever is true, whatever is beautiful, whatever is noble, whatever is just, think on these things. And I'm probably butchering it, but
It's pretty close.
it's pretty close. I think that's the important part of tradition that we need to consider. It's not the old for the sake of the old.
Right. It's not the old for the sake of the old. You could say that 7 times.
Yeah, it's that there are tradition and the Latin rite of the Mass
Mhm.
has these beautiful elements to it that are extraordinarily striking. The vestments, the candles, the prayers, the Latin, the language, the rhythm,
The silence in
the
the low mass, which I
silence.
love.
It's all very, very conducive to our senses, that it does draw our hearts and minds.
It's transcendent.
It is transcendent.
That's it.
And I think that's really important, because I don't think, and I this is just coming from me. You know, I was raised in the Novus Ordo. It was my formation, and I'm not against the Novus Ordo,
Right.
but there is something exceedingly beautiful to come out of the world where everything is now become basically very base and banal and non-inspiring, and we're just constantly inundated with all kinds of images of just everything,
Yeah.
right? That nothing really strikes us anymore. And then we go into the traditional form of the Mass, and it's different.
Yeah.
It's strikingly different.
Totally different than the culture is
Than
the key
culture.
issue.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that is that what you're trying to convey, you know, through this work, and through, I think you have some new works called Discover Tradition and Godbread. Can you share any of that with us?
Yeah, please. Yeah, we'd love to, because we're so excited about it. And it's the next chapter for us, because while we will always talk about the liturgy, right? I mean, we're always going to talk about the beauty of tradition in the liturgy, but we want to show the world tradition in all the other aspects of our faith. So Discover Tradition is an episodic Catholic travel show, and it's exciting. It's fun to watch. It's something that the whole family can gather around and watch it and say, I had no idea about this thing. And for most families, I mean, we're having our 10th child. We are blessed that we can do some things, but we can't just pack up all the kids and say, yes, let's go to Spain for Holy Week and be in those crowds with 9 kids, right? It's just not going to happen. So, for example, Discover Tradition, we are filming season 1 right now. We have gone to Naples, Italy, and that will be episode 1, where we show the feast of San Gennaro and the feast and festivals and the tradition of the liquefaction of his blood. And we talk about San Gennaro.
We've seen that.
It's
Yeah.
unbelievable. And then we've also been to Malta. We're going to show St. Julian's feast day, and obviously talk about St. Paul, because he and St. Luke were shipwrecked there.
Sure.
In Acts 27 and 28, it talks about that. So Discover Tradition is this Catholic travel show that's exciting. We also are, I'm the oldest guy. I'm 50 years old this week. Everybody else is younger than me, about 20 years younger than me. They know how to make exciting media, and we are talented. You guys saw the 3 films.
Yeah.
And
incredible. Really, I encourage everybody to watch them.
Yeah.
The production quality is Hollywood level, and we're doing this on a fraction of a budget. So we're so pumped about Discover Tradition. Our first episode will be brought to the world in late June. So we're literally just about 90 days away from our first episode of Discover Tradition. And we're going to do that forever. Like, literally, we're never going to stop doing that, because there's so many traditions. There's so many things that we want to show around the world. I do believe that we are locked in to go to St. Baume to do St. Mary Magdalene's feast day. And we're going to Mont Saint Michel and get to show
an
that.
incredible place. Yeah, in France.
Yeah. I mean, people are going to lose their minds when they see this on the screen and we tell that story. So that's Discover Tradition, and we're really, really excited about the future of that, and how it's going to be exciting for individuals and families to watch. And then
Tony,
Godbread. Go ahead, Dan.
Tony, I want to just make sure we're kind of coming down to 2 minutes or so. Tell me what's the website we can get to, and then tell me about Godbread, so people don't miss it. What's the website we can send folks to?
If you go to tradition.tv, so tradition.tv, that is our tradition.tv. That's our website. They'll always talk about our project. So you're going to see things about Discover Tradition and Godbread. Godbread is our film of 4 stories of Eucharistic saints. So we're going to film that in Q4 of this year, and we're going to take that to the theaters all across the country in 2026.
So
Oh,
tell me the four
God-
saints. Is St. Peter Amard one of them?
No,
Okay,
but
tell me the four saints.
I will tell you three because Cameron won't let me tell you the
Okay,
fourth.
all right, that's fine.
But so Little Lee, which
Uh-huh.
is the little girl from communist China in
Okay.
1950 that inspired Bishop Fulton Sheen, St. Margaret Mary Alacoque,
Mhm.
and St. Katere Tekakwitha.
Oh,
So
fascinating.
those are three of the four, and maybe he
Uh-huh.
gives me permission to mention the fourth at some point.
Okay, very good.
Well, that's amazing. That's wonderful.
Well, we need to wrap up the show, but really, really want to say I appreciate your approach. You don't have this mad trad approach. You don't have this idea. I know it's even in the Q&A on your website that you don't believe that TLM magically, transforms people into, saints. But certainly what you believe and what we believe is that as our faith is deeply rooted in authentic tradition, it will always create what you're saying is your mission, the good, the true, and the beautiful, but also the unity among us.
Yeah.
That's
And I
right.
think we really need that. And I think, some of the struggle that the traditional movement has gone through to recover some of these things is cost a lot of people. And that struggle is, kind of resonates in a way that at times can create some frustration. But I think we're turning a really good corner. And I think what you're doing is leading that charge in a very effective way to help people to say, hey, let's look deeper. Because when you look deeper, you're not going to be one of those 800 who wants to leave. Instead, what you're going to be is one of those people who's renewed, restored, and finding a faith that they never knew existed, even in the very pews that they're sitting in today. So thank you for your great work. Folks, go out to tradition.tv. Tradition.tv. I want to say .com. It's not that. Tradition.tv. Thank you so much, Tony, for all your good work.
Thanks, Dan and Stephanie. Really appreciate it.
Until next time, may the God of peace make you perfect in holiness. May he preserve you whole and entire, spirit, soul, and body, irreproachable at the coming of our Lord, Jesus Christ.
Learn more about the interior life. Visit spiritualdirection.com. Divine Intimacy Radio is a co-production of EWTN Radio and spiritualdirection.com and heard worldwide on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.